Hello world, it's an interesting point and click game that barely meets the criteria, but I'm gonna talk about it anyway time once again. We're looking at Elsinore, or given where I left the cursor there, Elsinore. I did the hand gestures and everything, I'm deeply ashamed. This comes from Golden Glitch and it was kickstarted in 2015 and released on Steam for Windows, Mac and Linux in 2019. I'm not trying to cast shade by pointing out the 4-year development time, by the way. The number of variables they had to consider here, I'm surprised it came out as well as it did. Full disclosure, I do know someone on the team, as much as I didn't realise that when I picked the game up. You can watch us participate in some streaming marathons together, and this episode of Yar Talk, hint hint cross promotion hint. Anyway, if the word Elsinore sounds familiar, then congratulations, you've figured out 50% of the game's premise. Or you're from Denmark. Incidentally, there may be some spoilers for Hamlet in this footage, but you've had 400 years to read or watch that, come on. The concise way to describe this game is interactive Hamlet, but also Groundhog Day. The not so concise way to describe it is that you play as Ophelia, experiencing the events of the Shakespeare play, more or less, but from her own perspective. Oh, and she keeps warping back to this one moment in time where Hamlet bursts into her room and wakes her up. Ex-boyfriend of the year right there. The main objective is to figure out why you're stuck in this time loop and ultimately escape it. That's not the only way to play this game, however. See, what you do is walk around and talk to people. Sometimes you interact with objects, sometimes you listen in on conversations, sometimes you pet the dogs, but the vast majority of gameplay has you walking around and talking to people. Now, that's not new. Pumping non-player characters for information is a staple of the adventure game genre, but here's where it gets tricky. Characters in Elsinore can gain information back from you, and that can influence their actions. Now, the game isn't sadistic. It'll highlight what information you just gave away and how it changes what the character knows and believes. You can absolutely get yourself locked away by running around telling everyone that time is repeating itself, of course, but all that does is punt you back to the start of the loop. Not the first time I've seen an adventure game employ a time loop either. Awake was the first game like that to cross my desk. This may be the first one where you really have to think about what you say to people though. The Blade Runner game also had a go at this by letting you withhold evidence from the police computer, but I don't recall that making much of a difference. Here you can influence the other characters to do all sorts of things just by sharing what you know with them. Tell somebody that a murder is going to occur tomorrow night? Well, they might just try and do something about it. That's one of the other ways you can play this game, by manipulating people and events to the outcomes you want. Sounds kinda creepy when I say it out loud actually, like your only goal is messing with people's lives. Luckily, you can say that's all in pursuit of these objectives in your journal. Those are wee tasks you pick up from your chin-wagging with the other inhabitants of the castle, and continued chin-wagging will update those entries with new information. All this information is retained between time loops, by the way, so you can get a head start next time round. I suppose you could call them side quests, as they don't all directly relate to the task at hand, escaping the time loop, even if you find some overlap here and there. And since you'll be taken back to the start of the loop eventually, it gives you that freedom to explore and try things out, or simply focus on one of those side objectives. To that end, the game gives you a couple more tools to aid you in your endeavours. I've already mentioned the journal, so I'll move on to the timeline. This shows you the conversations you've already had and the events that will occur in a particular time loop. Some of these events will have already happened and they'll report back anything notable that went on. Some of them will be scheduled to happen and describe roughly what is slated to occur. And some of them, depending on your actions, will no longer happen. Usually because one of the participants is dead or driven to a permanent despair, or both. You'll also get the location of the event and a list of participants at a glance, making this very useful when you're playing chess when you're plotting your way out of the time loop. Whilst the ability to scroll back and see how previous timelines played out is a great feature to have, I might have liked it better if you could predict the timeline a bit better based on what you already know. As it stands, the list of events tends not to go past a day when you already know from a previous timeline, hey, those two are going to talk in the courtyard. Like a Ghost Rider in a racing game time trial mode, or a transparent overlay of your previous timeline, something like that would be good. In any case, it gives you all its information very quickly and easily. Whether or not you'll be able to keep all that in your head and survive the experience is another story, but that's what you sign up for with this game. Don't worry about having to wait for things to happen either. 1, time moves at about 1 minute per second, and 2, you get a fast forward button. Eventually. With all the different mechanics you can use, it takes a wee while for the game to dole them all out. If you're watching this and thinking, Christ, I'm going to have to spend hundreds of loops stalking every bastard to make any progress, well, that's a viable tactic, but you can just pay close attention to your map instead. Not only does it give you the locations and the people who currently reside within them, it also lets you know when an event is about to occur. even when it's an event you don't already know about and doesn't show up in your timeline. So if you see a location turn blue and your timeline won't tell you what it's about, consider dashing over there for a wee nosy. Which you can do from the map, by the way. That's really convenient. You can do the same with people too. Click their face to track them down. And once you get there, you can choose to talk or follow them around and see what they get up to. Amusingly, Ophelia will often hide while an event is taking place in a manner which I don't think actually holds up to the legal definition of hiding, but whatever, the rest of the cast go with it. You're not going to get trapped in an event either. You can click that speech bubble icon to watch the scene play out or run straight past. This isn't a traditional point-and-click adventure. I hope to God I've made that point clear. You're not solving puzzles or making your way through a carefully crafted linear experience. No. What this game does is let you take the reins and go exploring, to throw spanners in the works and see how it plays out. Or maybe, eventually, once you're on loop 2000 or so, maybe see about finishing the damn thing. There's a lot of care and craft put into this, lots of attention to detail. Like how Ophelia goes from distraught to confused to outright bored of the loop. It's fun to watch. The changes in lighting and shadows that occur as day turns to night. Easier to see when you fast forward, obviously. Or how the colour in the world starts to fade out as the loop grows nearer to a particularly large calamity. Oh, and the way the developers made it possible for hundreds of choices to coexist in pretty much any combination. There's plenty to discover past solving the main objective and a lot of fun to be had. The enormity of the game might seem intimidating at first, God knows that's what it did to me, but I'd urge you to push through. You don't have to play it perfectly, after all, time will reset. Having that freedom to try again, to investigate, or simply to muck about is a great feeling and one we don't get many examples of, especially in this genre. This is probably the point where I meant to compare this to Majora's Mask or the Sexy Brutale, but I haven't played either of those. Can't end the video that way though. Okay, I've got it. If you want an indication of how much I recommend this game, I haven't completed it. I'm still in the time loop, messing around like a mad lad to my heart's content. I've got more gameplay yet to go, and I still think you should play this.
No! You killed him!